Welcome back to another episode of 6 and 6, where we cover 6 stories from around the world in 6 minutes or less. With that said, start your timer. First, we look to Peru, where some are mourning the death of the country's previous leader, Alberto Fujimori. While some consider him a hero, others remember him as an iron-fisted ruler. From BBC, quote, his daughter, Kijo Fumori, posted on social media to say the former president had died after a long battle with cancer. He was convicted in a number of cases, including corruption, abuse of power, and being behind 2 death squad massacres in the early 1990s. Though supporters of Fujimori began gathering outside his house as soon as his daughter posted the announcement of his death, end quote. Those that remember his rule fondly speak of him halting a communist revolution within the country, even if most of his campaigns were targeted at specific segments of the population. Across the Atlantic, Kenya's main airport in Nairobi has faced major delays due to a strike, which has left many passengers stranded. From BBC, quote, workers launched their protests over proposals to lease JKIA to the Adani Group for 30 years. Aviation workers' unions argued that the deal was opaque and could lead to job losses. The union agreed to return to work after being given assurances that the deal with Adani would not be finalized without their approval, end quote. The strike has spread beyond the airport in Nairobi, with airport workers walking out in solidarity across the country. Looking to North America, the automaker Stellantis has been accused of sacrificing long-term growth for short-term profit margins. From Reuters, quote, Stellantis's first-half operating income fell 40%, mainly due to poor business performance in North America, its profit powerhouse. Vehicle sales in the region for its top brands, Ram and Jeep, have both declined at least 33% from the first half of 2019 to the same period this year, according to the research firm Cox Automotive, end quote. Though the company has seen positive market share trends over the course of the previous month, some do not see this as enough to offset its losses. Asian markets saw a brief rally as the yen began to trade weaker against the US dollar. Countries from Japan to Taiwan saw slight upticks, especially in technology stocks. From Reuters, quote, the disappointment over core inflation figures had pressured Wall Street, but again, tech stocks came to the rescue, with AI darling Nvidia jumping 8%, helped by a media report that the U.S. government is considering letting the company export advanced chips to Saudi Arabia. Regional tech-savvy markets followed suit, with Taiwan adding 2.2% and South Korea gaining 1.1%. End quote. With the U.S. likelihood of a higher rate cut off the table, investors have looked to the European Central Bank for what is predicted to be an almost certain rate cut. In Australia's second largest city, Melbourne, protests have broken out over a military contractors convention. Protesters were incensed that their city would play host to a convention where arms suppliers to Israel were present. From BBC, quote, authorities said that about 1,200 people had taken part in the demonstration targeting the Land Forces International Land Defense Exposition, many of whom sported Palestinian flags and sang pro-Palestine chants. Police had anticipated unrest ahead of the event, which is expected to draw over 1,000 corporations from 31 countries in the coming days, end quote. Protesters continue to decry their treatment at the hands of police, while local officials have called for any future protests to be peaceful in nature. Finally, in the EU, regulators are intending on cracking down on the use of dynamic pricing, as consumers have become very incensed at the prices of their tickets for some of their favorite music artists. From Reuters, if we require further regulation to ensure dynamic pricing does not become the norm, then I do think it will be necessary, said Dublin MEP Regina Dorothy, who previously called for Ireland's Competition and Consumer Commission to investigate the issue. This is a part of EU's broader campaign over the course of the last 2 years to ensure consumers are not being unfairly treated as they seek to rein in the power of multiple firms across the entire union. And with all that said, if you enjoyed today's episode and you want to find it on the RSS feed, you can check everything out in the description below that like and subscribe button. You can find it on Spotify, Pocket Cast, Podvine. Also down there, you can find the Twitter handle at Your Daily Flip, where I post a Twitter tirade at the exact same time that these are going out on the exact same day. And if you're interested in the podcast, a little bit more loosey-goosey, a little bit more commentary about American politics, that comes out on Monday, Wednesday, Friday on the same RSS feed and at the same YouTube channel at Daily Flip. So, with all that said, there's only one more thing to say. Stay safe, don't die.